This is the Chat City interviews from 103.2 Preston FM with your host, Hughie Parr.
OK, well, you're with Chat City on this Tuesday morning, and the Borough of South Ribble, I don't know if you know, was formed in 1974, and it incorporates Walton Dale, the Urban District, Leyland Urban District Council and Preston Rural District Councils, so quite a wide area, and the Mayor is the first citizen of the borough and has precedence within the borough boundaries over all except royalty and the Lord Lieutenant. And I'm pleased to say that the first citizen of the borough, the new Lord Mayor, Cllr Graham Walton, is in the studio with this morning. So a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Hughie.
And lovely to see you. Thank you for coming into Preston FM.
Thank you for inviting me.
So tell us a little about yourself then, if you would, please, Cllr Graham. Are you a local boy? Were you born and bred in the area?
I wasn't born and bred in Leyland as such, or the district. I was born in Preston, in Deepdale.
Yeah. Just
off Blackpool Road, in Clifton Grove. I attended primary school, not 300 yards away down Blackpool Road, St Gregory's Primary School, on the main Blackpool Road actually. I attended there till I was 13, then I entered the entrance exam for the Harris Junior Technical College that existed in those days, that now, as well we all know, is the buzzing U-Clan of Lancashire.
That's right.
So it was quite a different route down my educational road, if that is the correct way to go about it, but enjoyable in every instance.
And I think, am I right, a little birdie told me that at one time you played for Preston North End?
I was lucky enough. I was chosen to play for Preston schoolboys both at 14 and 15, as you could do in those days. Our home pitch was Penwith Mole, which was looked on as Wembley Stadium with the school fraternity in those days. Then I was spotted playing for Lancashire schoolboys, which I was chosen for, and with Tommy Smith of Liverpool and quite a few well-known players. We were playing I think we were playing Manchester, and we had scouts from most clubs at those days scouting. We didn't start at 9 years of age like they do today, and some 7.
That's right.
We were quite in our teens when the scouts used to come looking, and there was a scout from Everton. I was going to go to Everton, but father said, well, in those days it was quite a long way to travel from Preston to Everton for training purposes. So Preston asked me to sign, and funny enough, it was the manager of Everton in those days was Cliff Britton, and he not long after that he came to Preston North End. Exactly. So I was known to him before he arrived at Preston. I grew up there with the likes of Howard Kendall, and there was a lot of players there: Peter Thompson, Alan Spavin, David Wilson, and lots of friends of mine, Stan Paul, George Hakes, and we even had Frank Clark actually play in our youth team, who went on to win 2 European Cup medals with Nottingham Forest under Cloughy.
Right. So football was an important part in your life in those days.
If anybody had asked me what do I want to be, I would say yes, I wanted to be a professional footballer.
Yeah. And the time with Preston North End, I mean, there must be so many happy memories about playing there, and particularly over this last year with the people that came onto the streets, of course, for Sir Tom. There must have been so many memories attached to the club.
Yes, exactly. Well, I knew Sir Tom quite well. In fact, the rest home where Sir Tom was resident, my mother-in-law is resident there as well. And I used to speak to Sir Tom most Saturday afternoons. And we did reminisce about, albeit that Tom was in the first team, and I'd be then in those days in the B team. I think it would be good. But when senior players came back from injury, they always used to come and train on the Tuesday and Thursday nights when we trained, and they'd train with the young guys to assess their fitness for the following Saturday matches, and that was the time when we all tried to prove our point, for want of a better way.
Yes,
but you could never get anywhere near Sir Tom.
Yeah, I could understand that. So when did kind of politics come into life? I mean, as you were growing up, was politics within the family, or was it in later life that suddenly that interest came about?
No, I've always been interested in people who are leaders and the comments that people make and the way they go about doing the work. No, it really came about when I joined a member of a club a Conservative club in Gloucester Hall, and I got talking to two local councillors, and I think they were quite perturbed at some of the questions I used to fire at them. I think they got that fed up with me. They said, "Oh, instead of asking us, why don't you put up or shut up?" So I did eventually get invited to stand for the council on South Ribble. Where my first constituency was Farrington East in Leyland, the borough of Leyland.
And was it as you expected it would be, you know, when you were made a councillor and standing for the borough there?
Well, initially everything's new, so you're on a learning curve anyway. You do look up to the people who have been there considerable time, and they do help considerably with new councillors. We also have a marvellous set of officers at South Ribble who answer any queries and help us in every way. They're capable. So that was a starter for 10, and then you get to know your people that you're representing. I think this is the most important part. It's not you that has the honour of being a councillor. You have the honour of representing those people that voted you in. And this to me is the biggest accolade that any one person can do. And I can honestly say the representation of councillors in South Ribble do represent their constituencies with the best of their ability. And
becoming the first citizen of the borough, I mean, when you started out on the political road, did you ever think that you'd also be going down in the history books of South Ribble as being the Mayor of South Ribble?
Never ever in my wildest dreams, Hughie, would I have thought that I would have attained the position of Mayor of South Ribble. It's one of the biggest honours, if not the biggest honour I've ever had in my life. I put it on a par with my footballing days. Those were the most enjoyable part of my life when I played football, but also now, with having had nearly 8 years under my belt now as a councillor, you learn to enjoy the role as well as the responsibility of the role, and I think if you can combine the two, it's very fulfilling.
Certainly talking to, and we had Councillor Gardner frequently in the studio, and I must admit I used to be amazed at the amount of visits she was making, the people she was going to, what she attended throughout the week. It was absolutely fascinating. And I mean, it is a nice way of meeting people, isn't it, and bringing really politics into the community.
Certainly, and that's the old cause that we try to do within the community of South Ribble, and I as head, the figurehead as mayor, get invited to various functions. I mean, last week alone we visited 24 schools in the district of South Ribble. This was the football fever, which South Ribble Sports Partnership had fomentated for the schools to take part in a rumba, a dance to incorporate the World Cup, and it was marvellous. All the children, and the weather did help considerably, but the children, the full school, not just one classroom, the whole school attended, and they were really keen, and the dancing was absolutely marvellous, and the teachers were fulfilling for the occasion, and it was just absolutely perfect. And the amount of joy I think that gave to the schools of South Ribble, the children, was brilliant. And it's amazing because on Saturday I was lucky enough to be in the procession of Leyland Festival, one of our biggest shows of the year, and to my astonishment, after I'd spoken to a lot of the people on the floats before we set off in the procession, the Portmobile came out of the museum, and I was asked with my wife Karen if we would like to ride in the procession in the Portmobile. Well, I couldn't believe it, because that was beyond my wildest dreams. That was absolutely marvellous.
Wow. And I would imagine there's lots of surprises still to come during the next 12 months.
Well, they don't tell you about them, but I presume there are.
And I mean, when you found out that you were going to be the Mayor of South Ribble, did you on that evening sit down and think of the things that you wanted to achieve during the coming year?
It's quite a thing to try and comprehend in one aspect. There's so many things that you've got to think about, and so many roads to plan in the 12 months that you're mayor. A lot of the work is done by my secretary, Tracy O'Reilly, and her office, which is brilliant. But you still have to do a lot of background work and your own work on the places you're visiting, the people you are meeting. And on many occasions where I've got to do presentations, you've got to know what you're talking about in some instances. But yes, it hit us really hard at the first, and it has been extremely hard work, but extremely pleasurable work as well. And Karen and I, we've just been amazed by the friendliness and the organisations within our borough that help all these good charities that we want to help. The mayor himself chooses 3 charities on his mayoral year, and as well, you know, mine is St Catherine's Hospice in Farrington, and also the RNLI and the air ambulance. And maybe if we have a certain amount which we can afford to these charities at the end of my mayoral year, maybe we have a little bit left over that I could disperse to other smaller charities.
Because that is something that often the public don't think about, is possibly the money that is raised through your office for the various charities. And are they charities that are close to your heart?
Indeed. I have the honour of being honorary president of with my wife of St Catherine's Hospice. You get that honorary chairmanship for 12 months, and I've been there quite often in this last few weeks. We have had the Volunteers Open Day, which was a marvellous day at St Catherine's, where all the volunteers, God bless them, over 200 I think it are, and there may be more than that, sit down and the staff wait on them.
Yes.
So
yes.
We were on in a lovely marquee, and the weather was perfect. We had a great show on, and they really enjoyed themselves. But this is what it's about. And then the following Sunday it was the Yellow Ribbon Day, where the charities get together and we have a big fete. People come and help to spend the monies on various stalls, and this is another way of assessing some finance. St Catherine's is a marvellous place. If you ask anyone, I don't think you'll find anyone at all to have a bad word about. The RNLI, I've always admired the gentlemen of the seas, and I think sometimes we forget them, and it is a voluntary organisation. They have no fundings whatsoever. So I think this is a marvellous organisation to support. And lastly, but not least, is the air ambulance, which without the minutes and seconds knocked off a tragedy, maybe can save a life. And to me, everything like this, be it a child, an old lady, or a man or a woman, it is most essential to get them to the hospital as quickly as possible, and I think they do a marvellous job.
Right. Well, over the year, when we've had the Mayor of South Ribble and the Mayor of Preston in, both ladies of course, I know we've had questions from listeners who've been intrigued to know, with all the ceremonies that they've got to attend, how they cope with their wardrobe. I wonder if the same will apply to you. I wonder if our listeners will be wanting to know. with all the ceremonies that you've got to attend?
Well, I think that would be a question best addressed to my wife, Karen. Myself, I've got enough suits to wear, I think, to see me through the 12 months.
And just on a serious point, I mean, not all towns, boroughs, cities throughout the country do have a mayor. What do you think is important about having that mayoral role within a borough?
Well, I think it's a tradition that should be kept up. We're slowly losing a lot of our traditions in the United Kingdom, and I think it goes back to the mid centuries, and I think it should definitely be kept up. There are a lot of instances about financing a mayoral position, but the status of mayor was as a leadership and a man or a lady that could keep the community together and focused on the right direction in which to go. And I think it's essential, even now as a figurehead, that people enjoy seeing the mayor out and about, just like they do Her Majesty the Queen. They turn out in their thousands because this is the tradition which I think this country should keep up.
And of course, in that respect, visiting schools and meeting young people is certainly, something that will be evidence-based in that respect.
Exactly, and not only the children and the schools, but also the industrial part of my borough, which includes many of the big industrial that like BAE and Leyland Trucks and even Bax's manufacturing factory in Banbury Bridge, and we have large companies that people don't speak about, and this is going to be one of my ambitions actually, to maybe I can visit most of these industries and have a word, and solely to put them on the map, and let's shout from the mountain top that we have all these good companies in the borough of South Ribble, where we are capable of supplying anything that is needed, and the expansion that will be going on in South Ribble Borough Council with the new enterprise zones will be tremendous input to the industry and to the people of South Ribble.
Lovely. Well, can I thank you for coming into Chat City, taking time out of a busy schedule and coming on to Preston FM, and look forward to a meeting again. So big thank you to Cllr Graham Walton. Thank you.
Thank you, Hughie.
Thanks for listening to our podcasts. But don't forget, Chat City is live weekdays from 10 till noon on 103.2 Preston FM.